We learn about Gemara.
Morning.
We do that Tez Zion. We're still learning about items that you can sell to a guy. So we said regarding small animals, it's a question about bestiality, so it depends on the culture of that particular place. But when it comes to large animals, we said you're not allowed to sell to them for different reasons altogether. And especially selling, we know they're not going to harm their own animal. It's more to do with the fact that we're scared next time you're going to lend them or rent them an animal and be working on Shabbos, and it will be your animal that's not resting on Shabbos. Rabbi Yehuda then says, but if the animal has a broken leg, then he can't really do any work. So obviously you bought it for shchita, not to do work. So there's no problem of people will think, oh, if you're allowed to sell, you're allowed to also lend and rent. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, according to Bem usually it's Rabbi Yehuda, according to Bem a horse doesn't really do any activities on Shabbos that might be usher in the Torah. It's only what it rides on it. And if a person rides a horse on Shabbos, only usher Rabbanon. So therefore, we're not going to be strict and say, well, you cannot sell a horse, which is meant to be written on, because maybe next time you lend them a horse, and so what? It's only usher Rabbanon anyway. So we're up to the Gemara up to Zayin and Aleph. About 8 by the 2 dots, about 10 lines on the top of the page. Agolim, Siachim, calves, and foal, and young donkeys. Tanya, we learned Rabbi Yehuda, Mati b'shavura. Rabbi Yehuda says the animal has a broken leg. Let's say it's not treif, whatever else, but it's broken, so really can't perform much work. You're allowed to sell it. Why? There's no way that you can cure it, and they can live on, and then you can go ahead and perform all kind of work. So obviously, what did you buy it for? You bought it to shecht it, and if you're going to buy it to shecht it, you're not going to let it hang around. So there's no real mazaine because you'll pretty much shecht it straight away. They said to him, "Allah, what do you mean? There's another option. Marbian olah, you'll use the animal to father other animals. The letters will give birth, and meanwhile, it will stay in your property, and people will see a Yiddish animal. They'll think, oh, well, you can sell. Why can't you lend? Why can't you rent? The key with the Mabina Levi letters, since it has another option, who said he took it to Shechta straight away? Maybe he wants to leave it to impregnate all his other cows. Amalahen said Yehuda answered back, look at your tailors. Yeah, expression, mañana, in other words, it's never going to happen. That Yehuda's opinion that an animal that is all has broken things has other things in its mind, and it's not going to be interested in impregnating other cows. Bemseda, the last opinion, he says, Mati Besus, a horse is permitted. Tanya, we learn, Mati Besus. Why? What does a horse normally do? Carries people. And carrying people, you're not chayav karbachatas, and your animal's not working. He says, Atmoi, and the only thing is Rabbana, you might break a twig. And we'll see more later that there are other reasons maybe to ask it. But Rebbe asks, why is Rebbe asking? Is saying the right thing. Why is Rebbe asking? You know why he asks? Actually, for two reasons. Number one, another reason altogether. Mishum Toidas Clay Zion. A horse can be used as a weapon. If somebody in let's say, in the middle of a war falls to the ground, the enemy falls to the ground, you can get your horse to trample on the enemy and kill him. So the horse can be weaponized. And we said before, you don't sell weapons to a guy. So therefore, that's why you shouldn't sell a horse. Different reason altogether. That's number one. Second of all, the also, it has to do with the fact of selling large animals. Now, what does that mean? We just said before the large animals is because then you'll lend and rent. And by a horse, it's only Yisrael Rabbanim. What's the problem? We understand we're weaponize animals to trample on people. Somebody fell down wounded and just trample them and kill them. Okay. Oh, but what does Behemoth have to do with it? We just said the only reason why you cannot sell Behemoth is because it'll do malach on Shabbos. And if you lend it, your animal's working. But this doesn't do malacha. Horse doesn't do malacha. Rabbi Yechon says, like asking, this is your question. When the horse ages, it can no longer be used to be ridden on. What do they do with it? You can use it to pull the mill and to push the mill by Shabbos and on Shabbos. And that's mamish Yisa Deraisa, and you're working on Shabbos. Rabbi Yechon said Allah actually like Bem Seder. See, boy, he's the one who said that a horse you can sell to a guy because we're not going. Not like Rebbe, you said that.
That's Rabbi Yehuda up here.
No. Rabbi Yehuda is something else. Rabbi Yehuda, there's three opinions here. One is that always us. Rabbi Yehuda says if it's an animal with a broken, let's say, leg, it's not us anymore. And because well, what do you do with it on shchita? So no problem. No science I can hang around. And Ben said a horse is unique, is different because whatever malach, even if you lend it and rent it and it's working on Shabbat, what's it doing? Carrying people, and that's achana is that. So Gemara Boilu, let's ask a question. What about a shoy shel patim, a shoy that's being fattened up? And why do you fatten it up in order to shech? So you can't really use such an animal for beast. You can't use such an animal for work. Following the logic of him Seder, should you be able to sell such an animal to a guy? What's a chash? You might lend it or rent it, but so what? He's going to use what's he going to use the animal for? For work? No, he's going to work for shchita, and usually you shut it straight away. But the truth of the matter is to boil it Rabbi Yehuda and to boil it both. I'm going to ask a quote about to boil Rabbi Yehuda, even though Rabbi Yehuda is matter by a sus Rabbi Yehuda is matter by an animal that's broken because you bought its intended purposes. To shechting akal Rabbi Yehuda is matter ela bishvura only an animal that's broken the loy osir klamalach. They'll never come to do work. Aval high here the chimashale osir klamalach. When you take that animal that was fat, it's a regular animal, you fatten it up. What happens? You make it lean again. It's once again has potential to go ahead and do work. So even according to Rabbi Yehuda, maybe in this case it's us. Because who said you bought it for shchita? Maybe you have other purposes in mind to go work. I'll let it, don't feed it as much, and eventually it'll become lean again. Is also, so that's question number one. Oh, let's go forget. I deal my filter bonus what? That I don't care if if it's a broken leg, you might let it remain. And what's also I feel that bonus like I ask you Ella, why do we ask the stam of by an animal with a this stam of lavish chitakai? Who said you're gonna go ahead and shecht it? Why? Um, I will hide the stam of the chitakai. Who's going to shecht because it's a broken leg? Who said you're gonna go shecht it? Maybe you're gonna let it either impregnate animals, and therefore you have other purpose in mind. Why are you paying all this extra money to get a fattened animal? Other than the fact that you want to eat it and you want a fattened animal. So therefore, maybe I'm not because there's no chash that you can use it for malacha. So that's my question. Of course, either one, maybe it's different. Tashma coming here, because the Amar Rabbi Yudah base Rebbe in Rebbe's family, in Rebbe's family, they were makriv shoy shal pattern b'yom Edom. They had to pay a tax, so they would have to give this tax and a gift to the king, a fattened animal on the day of their holiday. Chaser Dalad Riven, he paid 40,000 coins, 4 times 10,000, as a bribe. They shouldn't be makriv on the day of their holiday. So they shouldn't have to be makriv on the day of the holiday. Then Elo Lemacher, wait till after the day of the holiday. Because the reason we lived before, you're not supposed to do anything on the day of the holiday. Then Chaser, according to some Rishonim, it's the following year, some did it at the same time. Chaser Dalad gave another $40,000. They shouldn't be makriv, and they shouldn't have to give it to animal when it's alive. Elo Shach. He wanted to give them a geshach animal because you're not allowed to give an animal to a guy because next time you're gonna even though it's a gift is like selling. Next time you will lend it or rent it. Chosset paid another 40,000, all up $120,000. In fact, you shouldn't have to give them at all anything, and therefore they abolished this whole tax. He bribed.
Why using a lot more the value of the animal itself.
120,000 coins. Yeah, I think so. But now let's understand one of the steps. My time, why was he prepared to spend all this money? Isn't it Mishum Dil Masal because he was worried that even though there's a fattened animal, it might be hanging around. People will say, oh, you can give a matana. Matana is like selling. To a guy next time they'll lend. So we see that even you asked a question before about a fattened animal, whether maybe it's only l'shchita, there's no problem. It's clear to me that even a fattened animal, you can make it lean again. All the time, going to ask back. If that's what the reason, that's how you understand Rebbe's Rebbe, my time, so why wait till tomorrow? If it's already a shach something else, why wait till tomorrow? He was trying to eradicate this entire minute of giving this gift to the king, and that's what his purpose was. The Sava Yaakov he thought that what I can't ask him in one go, drop this whole gzeda. So he did 3 steps, purta, so year by year, till eventually this gzeda was abolished. If you take an animal that's been fattened, and if you take an animal that's been fattened, and and then you make it lean again. You think it reverts back to its normal self. Who said it can still perform work? That's the assumption you made before. But who said? Amar Ravashi, Amar Zvida Bartura. Ravashi said Zvida Bartura. He's called Bartura because he used to deal with animals. Mashinale va'ovilachat. Not only is it does it revert back to its original state, it's much stronger and it can perform. But normally you would need two animals to perform. Maybe because his muscles got stronger to carry all that weight, and therefore the muscles are still there, and is able to perform twice as much as a regular animal. Okay, we're up to the next Mishnah. What you're allowed to sell to a guy, we're not allowed to sell to a guy. We're continuing. Well, we talked about Behema Daka, because of bestiality. We're talking about Behema Gasa because of Chash of Shabbos, your animal will be working Shabbos. Now we're talking about another category. We're talking about Chayis. Not Behema Gasa, but Chayis. Now, normally Chayis don't really work. You don't usually tame animals and that have them work for you. What would be the did then? Even though I remember when we were in Caracas, up the road, a block away, there was a person who lived there. He had it was a tiger or a lion, I can't remember, as a pet. It was always chained. So whenever they went on holidays and they went very often for business, he would let the lion go, walk around the thing, and his house was never broken into for whatever reason. We used to hear it from time to time. Give a yeah, very good. Mishnah. Ein moichin lehem. You don't sell them dubin, a bear. Remember we had traces in the beginning of the that a bear is even stronger than a lion. The arroyos, or lions. I always wondered in Hebrew, how do you say tiger? Because if in Hebrew say tiger is nemer. But if you look up the word nemer, it's leopard. In English, tiger becomes nemer, but in Hebrew, nemer becomes thing. So how do you say in Hebrew tiger?
It's like how do you say fun in Yiddish?
Fun in Yiddish.
That's not
Spiel. Stephen is play around.
It's no direct word to say fun. While in the Altaheim haben sie das nicht gehabt.
Where everything was fun. There's one word for
it. They didn't have such a musig of fun, so they didn't have a word. Same thing with tiger in Hebrew. Where do they have tiger in the middle?
Okay. The whole dover she yelled. Even though next to Israel we had, the gay arroy, you say. What do you think the whole cushion was? The lions roaming the land. That's true. Or you don't know, could another word for it. Anything that can cause damage to others, don't give it to them. So this is no reason altogether, because it can cause harm to you. But ain't boiling in the money. You're not allowed to join them, a construction company. You're not allowed to build for them a basilica. The basilica is like basically a church, but a very strong building. A very strong, and it's built like a ches, and it's very strong. You're not allowed to do that for them. And Gardum, and the reason why you're not allowed to do that for them is actually where Rashi learns is not because of church, but because they used to judge capital crimes. They used to judge people there and kill them, execute people there. And the same thing is Gardum. Gardum, you're not allowed to do it as well because it's a binyan for a courthouse where they used to judge people and kill them. Same thing. Itztadia is like a stadium or more like a coliseum where they used to have animals fighting with each other. And the same thing is sometimes the Eden were victims. Nor bima. So bima is machlek is what a bima is. A bima is Rashi says a bima is an altar. Rashi says bima is an altar, and he says that an altar is not considered tashmisha avodah zarah. It's called, according to Rashi, tashmisha dit tashmisha, because it's in itself. It's not a base for avodah zarah. It's a base for the animal that you shecht for avodah zarah. It's 2 steps away. Other Shem Torahs give Rashi, they say not allowed to build an altar either, and they say it's something else. Anyway, then he says here, "Avodah imam," but you are allowed to build with them is bimusayis. This is not to do with avodah zarah, and we'll see later what it is. And Rashi says, sorry, I'm going to say, Rashi says that bimusayis is a bima, and Rashi says here, my bima, it was one stone, and it's called an altar. So I guess altar is not an English word. It's maybe Anglo-Saxon or French or something of Latin or French or whatever, going back there. That was an altar. And again, the bima is basically another kind of a platform, a wooden platform where they used to push people off that they had to be executed. That's what bima is, sorry. Bimusayis is a one rock altar. Faces argues what bimusayis is. Well, base mechatayis in the bathhouse, higia keep they would make this big dome. Then that's for that where the house the Avodah Zarah, that you're not allowed to build. You're not allowed to build a house for it. What about a large animal? What's the dinner? Are you permitted to sell like a donkey? Are you permitted to sell to a goy or not? So Rav said, "Harehi kebehema dakel lepirchus, abalei lemechila." As far as mechila is concerned, we treat it like a behema gasa. The behema daka depends on the culture of the minhag. Behema gasa is always usher. So a chaya gasa is treated like a behema gasa as far as selling is concerned. You're not allowed to sell it. What kind of work can you do? We'll soon see. Masha Einkein, you're allowed to, when it comes to pirchus, the pirchus as follows. The din is when an animal is geschocht, and you have to make sure the animal is healthy and everything else, especially if the animal is in danger of life, you have to see the animal move about afterwards. That's the whole shiloh with our meat over here, where they shoot right away, so you don't have a chance to see the pirchus. There was actually a big rov here last year who came here to try to convince there was another method of doing things rather than shooting. But anyway, so when it comes to behema daka, when it comes to behema gasa, the animal just moves its foreleg out. That's enough of a pirchus to say that it wasn't dying before. You just shechted and that's it. But when it comes to small animal, the fact that its foreleg moved out is not good enough because that's a natural reaction. It's only when it draws it out and then it brings it back in again. So when it comes to a chaya gasa, it's the same thing. Chaya gasa, you have to see it like a behema daka, its foreleg to go out and then it come back in. That's what Pirchus is. And the one who said it over, Rav Chanan Bar Rava, says, I disagree with Rav, and I say, also when it comes to selling, I hold when it comes to selling, a chaya gasa is the same thing. We're not worried about this melacha business. Okay, says the Gemara, for example, like a lion and so on and so forth. And we learned bears and lion, anything else which can harm the rabbim. So only animals, chayas, gases that can harm the rabbim, you're not allowed to sell to them. But if it wouldn't harm the rabbim, it's a domesticated chaya, you're allowed to sell. But you just said that we treat a chaya gasa like a behema gasa, which means you're never allowed to sell them. But the other time, these ben rabbim, the only reason is we're worried about the harm to other people. Oh, less ben rabbim are permitted. How come? Amar Rabba Barula said that Ba'ari Shavar. This is what the Mishnah says. Our Mishnah says that you're allowed to sell. What do you call it? A lion, right? Only if they harm. If they don't harm, you're allowed to sell an animal that can't do any work. And follows the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, says that if the animal is broken and can't do any work, there's no shash. Because what are you taking it for? It's a shash to kill. The Rabbi Yehuda, it goes according to Rabbi Yehuda, who allows behema gas in this situation. Talk about according to the bundle, you're not allowed to sell behema gas, and no can you sell the chaya. Ravashi says, "Stam adi shavreis malacha." It doesn't mean a lion with a broken, leg or something. Every lion, what can you do with it? What kind of work? What's chashashi? You're going to work with it? You can't work with these wild animals, and therefore, if they're all considered behema shaver, they're going to be malacha. So Meisel asks a question. It says, instead of Braisa, Kashem, She'ein Moichel Lehem Behem Gasas Klot. Just like, also a large animal, Kach Ein Moichel Lehem Chai Gasas. Because clearly that the two are the same. I feel the Mokhtar Moichel and Bedaka, and even those places that do so Behem Bedaka, we're not worried about the bestiality. Chai Gasas Moichel Lehem. No, to you to the Rav Chanan Bar Rava says clearly here, like Rav said, that a Chai Gasas is like a Behem Gasa, not like Rav Chanan Bar Rava. It repudiates his opinion. Ravina, the Gemara has another version of how this whole conversation went. Ravina actually Rami Mastisla Braisa goes directly asks the question between the Braisa that we just quoted and our Mishnah. Right? And the answer similarly. In our Mishnah says, the only problem is they cause harm. Time you allowed to sell them. Those are chaya gasas, not like a behema gasa. But I mean, when the Braisa Kashem that you never allowed to sell a chai gasa. How do you reconcile that with Mishnah or Meshani? And so therefore, the answer we gave before, we'll use over here. The Ari Shavar really good. Follow Rabbi Yehuda says that even by behema gasa, if it's not trying to work, then there's no problem, no issue because you're going to kill it straight away. Same thing by chai gasa. And Ravashi says you don't have to say that because Stam Ari Shavar eats a malacha. Every Ari is considered. You can't get domesticate an animal. How many times you eat, even in a zoo, the animal is so trained, sometimes turns against its keeper and harms the keeper. You can't drain them. Mashkov, not the question. Man le malon, who said to you the Ari Chayagasi, who said we're talking about an Ari? You're making an assumption that when our mission says Dubbe Barayas, we're talking about large animals, and therefore they have a din of a they're physically a Chayagasa, and our mission seems to say that a Chayagasa is not like a Behemagasa. A Chayagasa is only if it threatens and harms other people. Maybe we're talking about over here a small lion, a cub or something, which is therefore not Gasa, it's a Daka. And as far as the Daka is concerned, we're raising a new issue here, and that is if it causes harm or not. And no, even a place where behemoth Dakas are permitted, but not Chayi Daka if it can threaten people and cause harm. Dilma Chayi Daki. Who said B'chalas still? Talking about different. Who said B'toma Gasa? Maybe B'toma Daka. Ravashi, Daik Maslisin. Ravashi looks at our Mishnah and Umaysim to Yuta. And he asked the question. Now we learned, our Mishnah says, what? Only because of harm. Time he doesn't even bring the Braisa. He just focuses on the Mishnah. He has the same idea. He said, well, the Mishnah seems to be saying we're only worried about, only concerned about the harm the animal can cause. The time Ari, and only talks about Ari, a lion. The Stam Ari, Shabur Eitz Malacha. And Stam Ari is useless when it comes to Malacha. So therefore, and still, and it says only if it causes harm because it can't work. But let's say other chayas gases that can perform work, other chay klari, there's no way you can tame it. But other animals that maybe you can, a donkey or a mule or other chayas that you could actually have working for you, sounds from the Mishnah, and they don't cause harm, no problem. You can sell. Sorry, you're not allowed to. Only a lion because it's not shaykh to work. So therefore, the criteria is cause harm or cause harm. What about other animals that you can domesticate and have it work? Is no different than a behemagasa. The same idea. You might next time lend it or rent it. So therefore, it's clear that Rav is right. So Yufta Rav Chalabarova to Yufta. Says the Gemara, what animals? Gemara right now asks, what animals can you domesticate and have it work for you on Shabbos? Not just a donkey carrying things for you is only also again, unless you're Mechamer. Amar Abaye said, only my Yehuda the Bei my Yochni, that my Yehuda from Bei my Yochni told me that Tochne the Chayim Barudi over there they used to use the mill and use the donkeys to turn the stone around. Sorry,
wild donkeys.
Yeah, we're talking about wild donkeys. Yeah. Wild donkeys, and the idea you could have behemoths, chayes gases, domesticated and do work for you. Not everything is like a lion. Tell you what, Amar Abdel says. When we're, and this is fascinating. Just show you how important it is to remember not only the Maimer Chazal, but who actually said it. Because maybe Gul Olam, so you need to remember. So he was a member for bringing the whole night with us. We're learning more about Metzia. This is a Mashpia Maristan. But yeah, in the beginning of Metzia, Lema the Lake bananas. The Mishnah does not follow bananas. So he wants to know how many guys that care if the Mishnah is bananas or not bananas. Same thing. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I spent hours on it.
Yeah,
the same thing. Yeah. Very good. As I said, when I was by the Shiva of Rabbi Yehuda, now Rabbi Yehuda learned by Rav, Rabbi Yehuda learned by Shmuel, and he also went to Yisrael. The same thing we have at Rabbi Lozer, who was a favorite Talmud Rabbi Yechon. He also went to Rav and Shmuel. So they all moved around and they learned from everybody. You can imagine they had the greatest teachers. So the problem was Rabbi Yehuda, sometimes you couldn't remember who said it. Was it Rav or was it Shmuel? You have so many times the Shat Yehuda Rav, and you have so many times the Shat Yehuda Shmuel. So Rabbi said, when we were Rabbi Yehuda Amalei told us, give me the we learned from him this thing. The Megaber Rabbi Shmi, Rabbi Yehuda said, I learned this from a great rabbi. I don't remember Imarav Mishmul. And this is the following: Chayagasa, a large animal, a large wild animal. When it comes to pirchus, the what do you call the spasms when it moves back and forth. That we follow the rules of behemadaka. That the foreleg has to go out and then come back in. Or the kiasoi, when I came to Kokina. And when I came to the Rabbi Yehuda saying, I was lost. I didn't know who said it. I once came to the city of Kokina and Ashkachte, and I found that Rav Barashi is clear that this Rav Ashi is not the Rav Ashi that we know, because this is Rav Ashi in the times of Rav. So here you have Gemara Klor. Rabbi Yehuda said, when I went there, I met Chia Barashi. The Yossi was saying the Ka'amar Mashvei Shmuel. He was saying it over in the name of Shmuel, that he heard from Shmuel. I mean it. And I said, I couldn't remember who I heard it from, but obviously I heard it from Shmuel. Yet, ki asoy l'suda, when I came to Suda, I found Rabbi Bar Yirmiyah, the Yosef will come and he said the same thing in the name of Rab. I mean, I said, Shema, eat my the Rab, eat my shishwal. That's why I was confused, because Taka is both of them. When I went now, Rabbi Yehuda continued saying, when I went there, Ashkachti Rabasi, yeah, the Yossi will come, and he was saying, Amar Rab Chama Bar Guria, Mashvei the Rab. Rab Chama Bar Guria is the name of Rab. That Rab Chama Bar Guria said in the name of Rab. In our Gemara we had Rab Bar Yirmiyah. There I found Rab Chama Bar Guria that he said the same thing in the name of Rab. Don't you think that it was not Chama Bar Guria said it, but the man Moral Lishmai the Rab Bar Yirmiyah? It was actually Rab Bar Yirmiyah. Not sure why it couldn't be both, but that's what he said. Amalei. So he said back to him, Pasya Uchma. No, Pasya Uchma, the Schwarze Keli, you black sort of the vessel, all dirty. Now Rashi says interesting thing. Others say the pshat is because it says that you used to fast, you have to be dedicated to learning Torah. You fast and your face sort of blackens. Rashi says that they were so into learning they didn't there's no hygiene and they didn't wash their clothing. Their clothing was filthy dirty, and therefore he was called them Pasya Uchma as a compliment. Minoi uminach between me and you, we got it right. Because they both said it. What do you mean? Each manam we actually learned. Amar Rav Zayda, Amar Rav Asi, Amar Rav Yirmiyah. Rav Zayda said Rav Asi, Rav Yirmiyah, Amar Rav Chama Guria, Amar Rav. So it was Rav Zayda, looks like, who went to Eretz Yisrael, not Rav Yehuda. Rav Zayda saying this. He said, when I went to Eretz Yisrael, remember we learned Rav Zayda fasted 100 times to go to Yisrael. So you should forget probably. I heard that Rabbi Bar Yirmiyah actually heard it from Rav Chama Bar Guria, and he said the name of Rab. So sometimes you say Rav Chama Bar Guria said it, sometimes you say Rabbi Bar Yirmiyah said it. And that was a chain of events. A whole Gemara discussing who was the author.
Everybody agrees.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Just learning this morning in Samakram about Rabbi Zayda fasting for 100 days to forget Babli is because Babli is a choser. Yeah. Babli is with a shaklavataria, a kasha teretzes, halamas v'estadium that you have to be mevarer. Your shalmis are yasher. It's just straight to the halacha. So it's there's a mile in her choser over the other, so he had to forget that.
Yeah, but the halacha is always like Babli and the Shami. Even the Rabbi Yirmiyah, Mechashakim, Meshivani. But we had no Gemara that anyone who started out in Babel went to Yisrael is 10 times smarter than somebody started out in Yisrael, staying in Yisrael, because you have both miles. He has a play to decide he wants to get rid of the mile of Babli, only every Sham. Oh, and yeah, the thing about Ein Banyan. Gimel B'Silkoy is saying that 3 different kinds of these building basilicas shall Malkei Oivyicham. One is for the royal family, Malkei Oivyicham. For the royal family, one is Mishal Mechatzois. They would make bathhouses, Mishal Oitzes, and the treasuries for the king. And this is a very strong building. Amar of Zarova Bays, 2 of them, you're allowed to get involved. But actually, one is also Simon, and the Simon is the royalty not allowed to do that. Why? Because that's, again, not with Avodah Zarah, has to do with because they used to execute people, or they used to rule that people should be executed. Lesser Malchei and Bezikim. That, we dash and lesser Malchei and Bezikim. We asked to build Malchei because Bezikim, they chain people up there. So you're not allowed to do that. So the Gemara, Vigram is another version of Marava. Cool, had to all 3 allowed to build. But man, ain't buying one basiliki, gardum, it's not your beam. Just like that mission, allowed to do that. Aim, no, we're not stam. Basilica allowed to for a king. It's talking about basilica made specifically for gardum. Gardum is where the courthouses were that used to execute people willy nilly. There was no justice, then it was all corrupt. But there's a stadium and a stadium or a coliseum, Michel Bima, the platform. So what I learned. Now this is a strange Gemara. And this is Shenitzmes Rabbi Eliezer was taken leminus. So Rashi learns that the Apikursim grabbed the whole Rabbi Eliezer Hurkinus. They wanted to force him to worship Avodah Zarah. What a strange story. Others, and there must be more to the story, they suspected, there was a time that they suspected Rabbi Eliezer Hurkinus of being a min. And the Romans couldn't stand it at Tzedukim, and therefore they arrested Rabbi Eliezer Hurkinus and asked him, why are you wasting your time with word Tzedukim? It's nonsense. That's what others learn. But even then, there must be more to the story. Why were they suspected of Lezer Hurkins? But that Rashi learns that the Minim decided they wanted to take him because they said he was the Rosh Hashiv, the Nasi, or he was not he was the head, and if they can get him on side, it's like the Enlightenment movement went to the Alter Rebbe, trying to get the Alter Rebbe on side. Anyway, Helul the Gardim, they brought him up to the Gardim to judge him. So this ruler said that you should be involved in Betalim according to the Rashi's version. Is why are you learning that? He said to him, Neman Alai Hadayan. The judge, I trust the judge. So the judge heard that, he thought Lezer Hurkins is complimenting him, and that he's conceding, yes, I'll stop these dvarim b'telem. But actually, he meant the ultimate dying, the Eibishter. Kesavar Oisa Hegman, all of a Wayman, he's referring to him. But Abelaz really meant was the Eibishter himself. So the judge said to him, now that you place your faith in me, Dimus, my God, whatever the name this God called Dimus, then you're exonerated and go home. Now, Abelaz, when he came home, they all came to trace it. They all came to console him because he felt terrible that either he used either because of him the guy swore to the Avodah Zarah, or because you allowed him to think that you meant him and Azevita. So he asked for nichum.
He felt bad, which he was over.
And that's another one. Why was he in the first place? This all according to Rashi's chat that says that the minim, what's going on there? Why did the minim, or even the other version I told you, they suspected him of minas, even worse. I mean, that makes sense. Why did they suspect me of minas? Because in Rashi's version, there's no suspicion of minas. They wanted to convince him. So who said he did another later? I guess the fact that they allowed this to happen, that in itself must be a punishment for something. And he didn't know what it was. Allow me to say one thing that you once told us. He said to him, say. We had the same thing when it comes to a lot of times. Akiva always the one who knew how to trace him, how to console him better than anybody else. Maybe you once heard a vart from an apokris, and you liked the vart. You liked the vart, even though it wasn't a bad vart, but it came from an apokris. That's why you.
Because you had
that's it. You had a nod from a min. And others say min means the Yashkas people, huh?
So saying that's why he's nixel and
or not nixel, that's what people thought. Or Rashi's version, that's why the Apes allowed these minim to try to capture him and brought him to this house and to force him to become a min. I'm going to keep this katani. You talk reminding me. Pamachas once he's going to Elian, so to walking up the marketplace in Sapodi, Umatsasi, Echad, I found this person, Yakovich Prasakanya Shmai, his name was Yakovich Prasakanya Amali. He said to me, Kosa B'Teiraschen. As soon as you hear the word in your Torah, you're ready to raise red flags. But it says in your Torah, like so the Esnan Zaina, you shouldn't bring an Esnan Zaina v'chul. Actually, we should stop here. We'll do this.